Welcome back, Vikings Nation. This is the Vikes Verified podcast. Nick and Matt here to give you a schedule prediction for the 2026 season. We are
Go.
here in Cub Studios out in Stillwater, presented by Pull Tab Sports, and we're gonna be breaking down each game a little bit for you guys tonight, starting with Week One, Matt, against our bitter rival, the Green Bay Packers. Now we dropped a schedule prediction earlier on Instagram. We're going to stay true to that. We have the Vikings coming out in week one and sticking it to the Green Bay Packers. Now, one or two reasons why I could see this. No Micah Parsons week one, most likely. He's their biggest threat on their defensive front coming after whether it's JJ McCarthy or Kyler Murray. I feel good about the Vikings setting a tone week one in the bank.
Yeah. Moving to week two, we go back to back divisional games. I do agree with you there. Obviously, I think opening up at home against Green Bay, great opportunity for this team. And with the injuries that you mentioned, they can get it done. I think the first roadblock for them will come in week two, their first road game of the year. Potentially Kyler Murray, potentially JJ McCarthy. I think that there's still going to be some things to maybe try to settle, factoring in the crowd noise and different things. And Chicago, I mean, I hate to say it, but they have a good ball club these days, and they've been a tough matchup for us. I think this is going to be our first loss of the year on the road in Soldier Field.
Okay, that puts the Vikings at 1-1. Then we head down south to beautiful Tampa Bay in Raymond James Stadium. Talented team they've got down there in Tampa. They got us in week one just a couple years ago. We're going to say the Vikings get them back in their home stadium with a win down in Tampa Bay. They lost some key defensive pieces. Now, they did get guys in Ruben Bain. I thought they had a good draft. We know about their offensive line and Tristan Wirfs, very good offensive front with Baker Mayfield behind him and a couple good backs. So we see this one being hard fought, but we got the Vikings going south and moving to 2-1 on the season with a win in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, that one's one of the biggest games on the schedule for me in terms of just swing potential there. Big opportunity for the Vikings there to go down south and get a win. The Vikings come back home in week four and host the Miami Dolphins. And I'll say this, I think this is the first must win game of the season. This Dolphins team is reeling. They brought in Malik Willis. They basically have a wide receiver unit full of rookies and unproven guys. This is a game the Vikings have to have at home. With some of the other games on the schedule, there's not a lot of leeway for this game to be dropped. And I worry a little bit about a trap game being on the road for 2 weeks, coming back against a lesser opponent. This is a game the Vikings have to come out and win. And I'm going to say that they do. And that moves them to 3-1 going into week five.
I like that, Matt. I think you're totally right. These are the games that you want to see as Vikings fans that we just take care of teams that we're better than. And,
Yeah,
we got a better roster than Miami. Malik Willis is going to get his shot. As long as we bottle up Devon Achan, I don't see us having an issue getting a
exactly.
win in that one. Then we got week five headed down to New Orleans in the Superdome. Can we channel some of that Kirko magic from the playoffs a couple years ago? And go get a win down in New Orleans. We have the Vikings winning this game. While I do like what the Saints are doing with Tyler Shuck, we getting Shuck tonight. Travis Etienne, great acquisition for them in free agency. And then they go get a guy in Jordan Tyson in the draft, who I think is a very, very explosive receiver that's going to make a lot of plays for them.
Yeah.
Pair that with Chris Olave. There's no question that they got some weapons on this team. But I think that, you look at the defense top to bottom, it's a secondary that we can expose, and it's also a defensive front that we can get after. So I think that ultimately the Vikings put up too many points for the New Orleans Saints in week five, and we get a W headed into the bye.
100%. I think the Saints are a sneaky team. In the NFC South in general, you look at the Panthers, they're trending in the right direction. Saints as well. Falcons, Bucks. I think this year we could see an improvement there in a division that has usually been known to be a little bit weaker.
Hmm.
Vikings get an early bye, but one that we'll take. Week 6 is obviously a little bit earlier than I think we'd like, but that's
Hmm.
out of our control. Off the bye, the Vikings come home and host the Indianapolis Colts at US Bank Stadium. Most likely, we'll see Daniel Jones again in a Colts uniform. I think that this is another big game for the Vikings coming off the bye. I think with the added time, I'm going to say that they come away with the victory at home against a good Colts team and one that falls in the same category of a team that they cannot overlook. Being at home with the bye, I'm going to give us the win there. and that moves us to 5-1.
Does that make us biased, Matt? Does that make us biased putting that at 5-1 already? Well, we've seen the Vikings come out hot in some recent years,
For
and
sure.
we feel like we're due for progression rather than regression from last year. So moving into at Detroit, Week 8, we are full believers that the Vikings are changing the narrative at Ford Field after JJ McCarthy walked in there last year and got a signature win to bring us back to 500. We think the Vikings go in there again and steal another one from the Lions. Now, I'm not saying the Lions' window is closed. I still think they're a talented team, but I don't think they're quite the same team that they were 2 or 3 years ago. And we've got the Vikings going into Detroit and winning this one. What does that put us at, Matt? 6-1.
6-1, and obviously there's going to be some bias stuff, like you mentioned. I will say, those first 7 weeks, the games are pretty favorable. We've got some tough divisions ones to start, but I think when you look at the Miami to Indy window, that's a huge opportunity for them to go 3-0, and I think they'll find their way to win some of those other games. So I don't think it's too crazy to say because we're going to get into the next chunk of the schedule here, and I think this is the nitty gritty, hardest part of the schedule that will really showcase what this team is built and made of. And it starts coming back home with a big primetime game, Monday Night Football, hosting the Buffalo Bills. That's probably going to be one of the most electric home games of the year,
Yeah.
up there with the Packers. I think this is going to be a tough one for the Vikings. We know how high powered that Bills offense is. I expect it to be a very similar game from the infamous one with the Justin Jefferson catch in that historic game that they had in Buffalo. I think we're going to see another one for the books. Unfortunately, I think this one might not go our way though, and I think we're going to take a loss here to give us our second loss of the season.
Okay, Matt. That puts us at 6-2 headed into week 10 versus the Green Bay Packers. And, a tale as old as time. The NFC North teams typically split one and
Yep.
one. We've got us going on a 2-game skid now, losing to the Green Bay Packers in week 10. I think, like I said, tale as old as time. You're going to have Tucker Craft back and healthy by then.
Yep.
Josh Jacobs pounding the rock. You look at Watson, Reed, Golden, they got weapons. Like I said, Micah Parsons will likely be back in the lineup by then. So Vikings split with the Packers, and we're going on to week 11.
Yeah, I think unfortunately the tough times continue here. You have to go on the road again to San Francisco, another powerhouse team in NFC. We know what they bring to the table, both offensively and defensively. They're a very deep team. I think this is going to be a tough one for the Vikings. We historically have not really fared too well on San Francisco. I think that narrative stays the same here. The Vikings take their third straight loss, losing to
Ooh.
San Francisco.
Okay, we're back down to earth there, Matt. So now we're back to
The
six and
bias meters
four.
evening out here.
Yes. So those who thought that we were just delusional Vikings fans for the first few minutes, here we are, 6-4, and now we're headed into Atlanta at home, Matt. Now this is interesting. Obviously, the signing of Tua Tagovailoa to kind of bridge the gap between Michael Penix's knee injury there. They still have Bijan Robinson. They still have Drake London. Added a couple guys in Jahan Dotson, Olamide Zaccheaus. They've got talent for sure, but this is the game after 3 straight losses that the Vikings bounce back and secure a W at home. We play a balanced game. Maybe we get some players back from those midseason injuries, and we're back on track at 7-4 with a W.
Yeah, I think Tua, I'm not sold on him. I do think that's a great opportunity for the Vikings to secure that win against a good team, but I wouldn't say a great team. So I'm there with you. I'm gonna go back here to week 13. We come back home and host the Carolina Panthers. This one has trap game written on it for me. Panthers are going to be a sneaky good team this year. I think that what they built with their front office, with the guys that they've acquired and put together, I think this is going to be a team that surprises people come this fall. This is going to be one where, again, they might be looking ahead towards that primetime game on a short week against the Patriots and might overlook a team like Carolina in their own building. And unfortunately, I'm going to say that the Vikings take a loss there.
Okay, that puts the Vikings at 7-5 for those listening. Now we're in Foxborough against the defending Super Bowl runner-up, the New England Patriots. Now they've been in the news quite a bit this offseason, maybe not for the reasons that you would expect, but
Mhm.
it's still a talented team up there with a quarterback that, to be blatantly honest with you, I wish was in purple in Drake May. So
Yeah.
But in typical Vikings fashion, play down to the lesser opponent, play up to the tougher opponent. I think the Vikings walk into Foxborough here and make a statement, get us back to 8-5 with a big W at Gillette Stadium.
Yeah, I think, like you said, I think that's a big opportunity to go on the road. And if we are coming off a tough loss against Carolina there, I think it is a great opportunity for them to stick it to the Patriots on prime time, get themselves back in the win column. But we mentioned how the NFC North is usually 500. The next week, the Vikings host the Detroit Lions. I'm gonna have to say again, this is tough to say, but we're gonna take another home loss to Detroit here. Or sorry, yes, correct. Detroit, we take a
Mhm.
loss and unfortunately, have to battle back there as we head into the final 3 game stretch here.
Yep, and then we've got the Commanders at home, Matt. This is what I like about the schedule this year. It seemed like the last couple of years, the division was being fought for in those
Yes.
final 3 weeks. We would play
Yep.
Detroit, then we'd play Green Bay, then we play Detroit again. And by the time it gets to this point in the season, teams are a little more banged up. You're not really getting the full representation of what a roster is in those last couple weeks of the season. Also, with playoff spots being clinched in week 18. Who knows if people are playing their starters or not? So that's what I like about this year's schedule. We get 2 games that are out of conference, out of division opponents, and then we end with Chicago. So week 16 versus Washington, we got the Vikings heating back up after a loss to Detroit. Vikings go to 9-6 with a big W over Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders.
Yeah, and the good times stay rolling here as the Vikings head to MetLife Stadium to square off against the Jets in Week 17. This is another game the Vikings have to have. They cannot overlook it. I would assume with it being at the end of the year, they're going to be very dialed in for this. And that Jets team just currently is not constructed to beat a team like the Vikings. And they keep the thing rolling here and they get on a 2 game win streak, defeating the Jets.
Yeah, I think you're totally right, Matt. While I did, I had a ton of praise for the draft this year, but if I'm being honest, I'm not sure Aaron Glenn is the guy to get that ship going in the right direction. And also, the Jets have some more dysfunction beyond just their roster. So, like I said, added some really talented players, but I think we best them here. And then we roll back into the playoffs, Matt. We're currently 10-6, and then we finish it out with a W versus Chicago at home.
Yep.
Week 18, we stick it to the Bears, set a tone, likely boot them out of the playoffs, in my opinion. And then we roll into the playoffs and get ready for Kevin O'Connell's first playoff win of his career. Vikings finish the season at 11-6. Now, is this overly optimistic, Matt? Maybe. But like we said, we think the Vikings are due for progression and not regression after a tough year last year, 9-8, almost made the playoffs, missed it by 1 game. This is the year to get back on track. Now, whether it's Murray or McCarthy under center, give me who's playing the best. I don't care who it
Yep.
is. I think we can win with both of them.
Exactly. I would say exactly what your point is that the good scenario for us is that best man wins. I think all fans can agree with that. And we're going to put the best guy out there. You heard it from the guy, Justin Jefferson himself. He's going to play with whoever's slinging the rock the best. And I think that's a good scenario for the Vikings to be in. I also think, yes, the Vikings will defeat the Bears in that season close game at Minnesota at home. After that tough loss last season at home against the Bears, I think that's a good motivation for them to really stick it to Chicago. Like you mentioned, it'd be a cherry on top, knocking them out of the playoffs as we hopefully secure our spot in. And while this may be a slightly optimistic prediction, however you want to call it, I think this team, we won 9 games, like you had mentioned, with below average
Mhm.
QB play. Now we get a QB room with a much higher ceiling. I think you're going to find a better level of play there. I think
Jawan
there's a
Jennings.
lot, correct. There's a lot of things that are pointing in that progression stage versus the regression. So I feel pretty good about this one. There's a lot to unfold here as we head into training camp, but this schedule, I think, does lay out pretty favorably for the Vikings. There's a tough
Mhm.
middle part and an early bye, but outside of that, I think there's a couple stretches that they can really take advantage of and assert themselves in this division and conference.
Yeah, I mean, on first glance, Matt, when I first saw it, I was immediately feeling a lot better than I have in the last 2 years, I would say. Now, would it have been a little bit weaker if we would have taken fourth in the division? Sure. But to be honest, besides the early bye, like you had mentioned, feel really strongly about the combination of playing beatable teams, but also playing teams that aren't completely broken so that by the time you get to the playoffs, you have a lot of experience playing tough opponents. And I think that's a big part of teams that make the playoff run. I mean, you saw it from the Patriots, kind of a cakewalk to the Super Bowl. Now, it's never a
Yeah.
cakewalk to the Super Bowl, but were they ready to go and face, a more battle tested team in the Super Bowl? I mean, no, it didn't look like it during the big game. So, I want to be battle tested. I know that we typically are when we play our division, the NFC North, one of the best in football. But feel really good about this combination of, like I said, high caliber teams and then teams that are kind of fighting for their way that we can still have good, meaningful reps against. So, moving forward, Matt, just some more brief news. Minneapolis St. Paul and the Minnesota Vikings hosting the 2028 NFL Draft. Give me your first
Oh,
impression. Give me your first impressions of bringing this event to Minnesota. We've attended a couple drafts ourselves. What an event. Great commerce for the area. I mean, how stoked are
100%.
you to see that?
Yeah, this is big for the city and for the Vikings organization. It's projected to bring in somewhere between 100 and 200 million dollars into the city. That's a great economic benefit there. And then something I saw after the announcement was a lot of fans were clamoring that we couldn't, we didn't have the space to hold this type of event. I would argue the opposite there. We went to Lambeau ourselves and they have,
Hmm.
great facilities there, but I wouldn't say it's a huge area per se. And they did just fine hosting it. The Vikings have a huge area in front of the stadium with a massive field. I'm
Hmm.
sure that on their full court press to secure this bid, they had a very good plan. I think we're going to see that come to fruition here. And it's going to be an exciting time for local fans here to truly get a taste of what the NFL draft is like. And nothing better than having it in your backyard. And I know for us too, we're very excited to be, very involved in that event and hopefully get to have some cool opportunities out there. So I think this is everything about this is exciting, and I think it's going to be a great opportunity for the national fan base to really showcase how great of a city Minneapolis is when we host an event like this.
I agree, Matt. You got a 4.2-acre park right out in front of the stadium, good bar and restaurant scene around it. So I think people are going to be pleased when they visit here for this event. And we're fired up to cover it, just like you said. I think if there's one recommendation I can give is, get the porta potty situation right. Get it right.
Well,
Because we did it
lines are
out in Green Bay.
terrible.
We did it out in Green Bay, quarter of a million people there, probably 40 to 50 porta potties for the whole crew. That was miserable. If Minneapolis gets that right, it's going to be a great event. But, we'll see if they end up using the stadium, how they set the stages up. We got some time yet before that event, but exciting development for our community for sure. This is the
Yeah.
Bikes Verified podcast, Matt. This is our schedule prediction for 2026. Officially dropped the exact same schedule prediction on our Instagram. So, we're not making multiple schedules and then we're going to backdoor you with whatever one was better at the end of the season.
Ride with
This
it.
is the this is the true Vikes verified schedule prediction. Any final words, Matt? Take it away.
I'm excited, man. Seeing the schedule, seeing the dates, it's already got me looking forward to some away games we can get to, the big home
Hmm.
games that we're set to host against the Bills, Packers, all these different things. It's a great time of year. It gets you really looking forward to the fall. But let's not forget about what's to come here with training camp. We got a lot to sort out. The
Hmm.
real noise starts in July once we see those guys put the pads on and start to see how the depth chart shakes out. And I think that's what's going to be the most exciting thing for right now. But I like our prediction. I'm confident with it. And now we ride with it and see how it shakes out.
100%. We've got young talent added to the building. We've got veteran talent added to the building. Let's see where this train takes us. The 2026 season is officially underway after rookie minicamp. Let's see what the destiny of the 2026 Vikings is. This is the Vikes Verified podcast presented by Pull Tab Sports live from Cub Studios. Skull Vikings.
Let's go.